I didn't cry when my sister called me a loser. I didn't cry when she threw my duffel bag into the rain like it was trash. I didn't cry when she locked me out of the house I grew up in. I cried when I saw my father's signature on the will, and realized he had been lying to both of us. The Greyhound exhaust was still hanging in the air when I stepped off onto the cracked curb in suburban Pennsylvania. 10 years in the Army. 2 deployments in Afghanistan, a medical discharge I didn't ask for, and now, a single duffel bag and a phone with 3% battery, no balloons, no hugs, no welcome home, just cold rain and silence. I texted my sister, Tiffany Miller. Me, I'm here. Tiffany, tonight. Me, yeah. Bus just dropped me off. Tiffany, Sarah, I'm hosting something. Hosting something? That something turned out to be a catered networking party with jazz music, catered sushi, and people who wore sweaters that cost more than my entire monthly pay overseas. The house glowed when I walked up the curved driveway. The mansion, Dad used to call it, a dumb investment. Tiffany called it, quitty. She opened the door and just stared. Her eyes flicked down to my boots. My backpack. My wet hair. Oh my God, she whispered, like I'd shown up in handcuffs. Hi, Tiff. You didn't tell me you were coming tonight. I didn't know I needed a calendar invite to come home. Her smile was thin. Tight. Corporate. You could have stayed at a hotel. I don't have hotel money. The silence between us felt like a sniper scope. Precise. Cold. Behind her, laughter burst from the living room. Someone yelled, Tiff, the donors are asking for you. She stepped outside and pulled the door mostly closed behind her. Rain soaked both of us now. You can't do this to me, she hissed. Do what? Ask my sister for a couch? Her jaw clenched. You look like you just got off a bus. I did. A couple inside glanced toward us. Tiffany shifted to block their view. You're embarrassing me. That one landed harder than shrapnel. I just got discharged? I said quietly. I don't even know what my benefits look like yet. She folded her arms. So after 10 years of serving your country, you're broke. I wouldn't phrase it like that. But it's true. Lightning split the sky over the lake behind the house. I just need somewhere to stay for a few nights. She laughed, soft, cruel. I'm not running a shelter. Tiffany. You left, Sarah, you always leave. I enlisted. Same difference. Her voice sharpened like a blade being drawn. You missed Dad's last chemo appointment. I was deployed. You missed his funeral. I was deployed. You're always deployed. That one cut deep. You have no idea what it was like taking care of him alone. You pushed everyone else away. I protected him. You controlled him. She stared at me like I just betrayed her. You want to know what I see when I look at you? She said. I didn't answer. A cautionary tale. Thunder cracked overhead, a woman who wasted a decade chasing medals nobody cares about. I wasn't chasing medals. You chased meaning in a desert. Rain streamed down her perfectly contoured face. And now you're standing here, she said softly, almost bored. With nothing. My fingers tightened around the duffel strap. Then she said it. Closer. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was casual, which made it worse. Before I could react, she grabbed my duffel and threw it off the porch. It landed in the soaked grass with a dull thud. The door opened wider. Now her guests could see. The war sister. The wet one. The failure. I'm not doing this in front of my guests. Tiffany snapped. I asked for help. And I answered. She reached to the entry table and grabbed a folder. Here. Since you clearly haven't checked your mail. She shoved papers into my chest. Rain blurred the ink, but I saw the heading clearly. Last Will and Testament of Daniel Miller. My stomach dropped. She spoke loudly enough for the guests to hear. The lakeside house is mine. I scanned the page. Property 110 Lakeside Residence, Tiffany Miller. Property 20 Miller's Fuel Service Station, Sarah Miller. The gas station. I whispered. That rusted dinosaur. Congrats. He wouldn't. He did. I need to talk to the attorney. Call him tomorrow. Her voice rose again for the audience inside. Unfortunately, my sister can't stay here. And then she closed the door. Locked it. I stood in the storm staring at my reflection in polished wood. Inside, music resumed, conversations restarted, life went on. I picked up my bag, and I walked. Miller's Fuel sat 5 miles down the road, a relic from the 80s. Rusted sign, dead neon, broken pumps. My inheritance. Inside, it smelled like old oil and abandonment. I locked the door behind me out of habit, military reflex. The office in the back had a metal desk and a filing cabinet. I dropped into the chair and finally let myself breathe. Dad had always been quiet about the station, said it was a fallback. I thought he meant a financial fallback. I was wrong, because when I moved a stack of old oil drums, looking for something soft to sleep on, I noticed something strange. The concrete floor wasn't all concrete. A rectangular section near the wall looked cleaner. I crouched, ran my fingers along the seam. Wood. A hatch. My pulse spiked instantly. Because my father didn't do accidents. I pulled the handle. The hinges groaned. Cool air rose from below. Narrow stairs disappeared into darkness. I clicked on my flashlight and started down. And what I found at the bottom changed everything I thought I knew about my father and my sister. On the shelf directly ahead of me sat a fireproof lockbox, with my name written across the top. Sarah. I swallowed hard, and opened it. I thought the worst thing my sister ever did was call me a loser in the rain. I was wrong. The worst thing she did was underestimate me. My hands weren't shaking from fear. They were shaking because my father's handwriting was staring back at me from inside that lockbox like he'd reached through time and grabbed my collar. Sarah. If you're reading this, then you came back to the only place nobody else would bother looking. My throat tightened. I did not leave you the gas station as a punishment. I left it to you because it is the foundation of something far more valuable than the house. Foundation. The word echoed in the underground room. The basement wasn't a basement. It was climate-controlled once. Shelves lined the walls. Binders labeled by year. Financial records, contracts, technical diagrams. This wasn't a fallback. This was a vault. I opened the leather journal. Dad's handwriting filled every page. Neat, surgical, no wasted ink. He wasn't just a mechanic. He had been a federal communications contractor for over 25 years. Infrastructure upgrades, secure relay systems, emergency broadcast contingencies, contracts dating back to the early 2000s. Nothing illegal, but not simple either. Then I turned a page and saw Tiffany's name. Dated 3 months before he died. I fear Tiffany mistakes control for care. My pulse thudded. Another entry. She filters access. She edits conversations. She believes I do not notice. My stomach flipped. He noticed. He knew. I kept reading. Sarah understands restraint. Tiffany understands performance. I sat back against the cold concrete wall. Upstairs, rain hammered the roof. Down here, truth settled like dust. At the bottom of the box sat a folder labeled Trust Instruments, Conditional Release. I opened it. It wasn't millions. But it was leverage. Dad had structured a trust that activated upon my return from active duty. Funds earmarked for operational transition. Legal review authority over estate disputes. Secondary lien acquisition rights tied to the lakeside property. I blinked. Secondary lien. Which meant Tiffany didn't fully own the mansion. Dad had quietly positioned me to hold pressure on it. Not revenge. Control. There was one final envelope in the box. Marked in thicker ink. Read only if Tiffany challenges you publicly. I didn't open that one. Not yet. Because something in me already knew. This wasn't about money. This was about character. The next morning, I didn't storm into the mansion. I called the attorney listed on the will. Daniel Harper. Mid-50s. Neutral tone. The kind of guy who probably alphabetizes his spice rack. We met at a diner off Route 30. Vinyl booths. Bottomless coffee. The kind of place where nobody cares who you used to be. He flipped through the trust documents I laid out in front of him. These were not included in the original estate packet. He said carefully. I found them in a secured storage area under the station. He removed his glasses, studied me. You understand what this implies? Yes. And you waited to bring this forward. I wanted to understand it first. Something like reluctant respect flickered across his face. 2 days later, he connected me with a forensic accountant. Margaret Klein, sharp haircut. Sharper eyes. She requested full disclosures tied to the lakeside property, mortgage, refinancing history, business loans under Tiffany's LLC, When the numbers came back, Margaret tapped the folder once. She's leveraged beyond comfort. How bad? She's stable only as long as her image remains intact. I almost laughed. Image. Tiffany's oxygen supply. She refinanced twice. Margaret continued. High-risk expansion into influencer marketing ventures, revenue inconsistent. So the mansion, technically hers, Margaret said. But fragile. Fragile. That word felt poetic. I drove past the house once that week, landscaping perfect. New imported SUV in the driveway. Delivery trucks unloading decor. From the outside, untouchable. From the inside, floating. I didn't feel triumph. I felt clarity. Because suddenly the night on the porch made more sense. Her panic wasn't about embarrassment. It was about exposure. If donors saw the war-scarred sister sleeping on her couch, it shattered the brand. I started working on the station. Not symbolically. Physically. Repaired the hinges. Cleaned the counter. Hauled out expired oil bottles from the Clinton administration. Locals noticed. Small-town Pennsylvania runs on curiosity and caffeine. The Miller girl's back, one trucker said. Army one, someone asked. Yeah, living at the station. I didn't correct them. Let them talk. I hired an electrician to restore partial power using trust funds. All legal. All documented. No mistakes, no drama, just quiet rebuilding. Tiffany showed up 3 weeks later. Black SUV, oversized sunglasses, perfume that cost more than my old combat boots. She stepped out and looked at the station like it personally offended her. Well, she said, walking toward me, heels clicking on concrete, this is tragic. I kept tightening a bolt. You're actually doing this? She asked. Yes. Living here. For now. She circled me slowly. You really think Dad wanted this for you? I think Dad was deliberate. Her jaw twitched. He gave me the house for a reason. And me the station. She smirked. Enjoy your fossil. I am. She removed her sunglasses. You always thought you were morally superior. No. You did. I just didn't need an audience. That one hit. She stepped closer. You're jealous. Of what? My life. I looked at her evenly. Your life is financed. Her expression flickered. Just for a second. Then fury. You don't even understand what you're messing with. I understand paperwork. She leaned in, voice dropping. If you think you can threaten me, I haven't threatened you. Then what are you doing? Correcting a narrative. Her breathing quickened. You found dusty files and now you think you're powerful. I met her eyes. I don't think, I know. Silence. Wind rattled the broken neon sign above us. She slipped her sunglasses back on. If this little survival fantasy collapses, she said, walking back to her car, don't come crying to me. She drove away convinced she'd won. She didn't know I had already filed for judicial review of the estate. Quietly. Strategically, because revenge is loud, but inevitable things move in silence. 2 weeks later, Harper called. The court accepted the probate dispute. And notices will be issued regarding withheld estate documentation. Withheld? Wes? Meaning Tiffany had failed to disclose the trust. Which wasn't illegal if she didn't know. But devastating if she did. Then Margaret called. Secondary lien acquisition is approved. Effective when? Upon formal notice. I exhaled slowly. Because this wasn't about humiliating her. It was about balance. For 10 years she curated an image of being the strong one. The successful one. The stable one. But Dad had left me the foundation, and her the facade. That night, I finally opened the second envelope in the lockbox. The one labeled read only if Tiffany challenges you publicly. Inside was a single handwritten page. Sarah, if she chooses visibility over reconciliation, do not stop her. The truth survives exposure better than performance ever could. I folded the paper carefully. Because something told me. Tiffany wasn't going to handle pressure quietly. She was going to go bigger. Louder. More public, and when she did, I would be ready. 3 days later, a cream-colored invitation arrived in the mail. Embossed lettering. Gold trim. Harper Lakeside Foundation Winter Charity Gala. Hosted at the Miller residence honoring Tiffany Miller. Entrepreneur and digital brand strategist. I stared at the card for a long time. She wasn't retreating. She was doubling down. And if she chose the stage, Then I knew exactly where this was headed. Because my father's final lesson was simple. If someone builds their life on performance, you don't attack the person. You turn on the lights. The invitation wasn't a threat. It was bait. And my sister had no idea she'd just walked herself onto the stage Dad warned me about. The night of the Harper Lakeside Foundation Winter Gala, I almost didn't go, not because I was scared, because I was angry. And anger makes you sloppy. I stood in the back office of Miller's Fuel staring at myself in the cracked mirror Dad used to keep above the sink. The fluorescent light hummed overhead. For 10 years, I'd worn camouflage. Tonight I wore black, tailored suit, clean lines, hair pulled back, no medals, no symbols, no drama. Just control. I drove up the curved driveway at 7:12 p.m. Valets in matching coats moved like synchronized swimmers. Luxury cars lined the street. Laughter floated from the open doors. From the outside, it looked like a magazine spread. From the inside, it was a house built on debt. I stepped out of the car. A few heads turned. Not recognition. Assessment. Inside, warm light spilled across polished marble. A string quartet played near the staircase. Caterers moved with trays of champagne and tiny food that required explanation. And there she was. Tiffany, radiant, glowing, wearing a red gown that screamed confidence and money. She saw me immediately. Her smile didn't falter. That's what she was good at. Performance under pressure. She excused herself from a group of donors and walked toward me. Well, she said smoothly. This is unexpected. Good evening, Tiffany. You clean up nicely. I try. Her eyes scanned my face, looking for cracks. Finding none. You're here to what? Observe. I was invited. Her jaw tightened just slightly. I didn't invite you. The foundation did. She leaned closer. You really chose tonight. I didn't choose it. You did? For half a second, something flickered behind her eyes. Fear. Then it vanished. The program began 20 minutes later. A board member stepped up first, voice rich with rehearsed gratitude, community, vision, impact. Then they introduced Tiffany, an entrepreneur who represents modern female leadership. Applause filled the room. She glided onto the platform like she owned gravity. Success, she began, is never a solo journey. The irony almost made me laugh. I waited until she was mid-sentence. Then Daniel Harper stepped forward. He didn't rush. He didn't interrupt loudly. He simply stepped into the edge of the stage lights and said, I'm afraid we need to pause. The room shifted instantly. Tiffany's smile froze. Daniel, she said through clenched teeth, this isn't appropriate. It's necessary. Murmurs spread. A bank representative entered quietly from the side, a county officer behind him. No sirens, no drama, just paperwork. Harper addressed the room calmly. There are pending probate proceedings involving withheld estate documentation tied to this property. Whispers intensified. Tiffany stepped down from the platform. This is a charity event, she snapped. You cannot do this here. The timing aligns with filing deadlines. Harper replied evenly. The bank rep spoke next. Due to material discrepancies and activation of a secondary lien, asset transfer restrictions are now in effect pending court review. Silence fell like a dropped plate. Tiffany turned toward me. And in that moment, she knew. You, she whispered. I didn't move. Phones began rising discreetly. Because scandal spreads faster than compassion. You did this to me? She said louder now. I didn't do anything. I replied calmly. I enforced paperwork. Her composure cracked. You're trying to destroy my life! I'm correcting it. The room felt smaller now. Donors began edging toward the exits. No one wants to be near collapse. Tiffany. Harper continued. All proceedings will be handled respectfully, but restrictions are effective immediately. This is harassment! She shouted. No, he said softly. It's consequence. Her breathing became shallow. You hate me, she whispered. I held her gaze. No, I hate what you did. A tear slipped free despite her effort. I took care of Dad. You isolated him. I protected him. You filtered access. The silence that followed was suffocating. You locked me out in a storm. I said quietly. 12 hours after I came home from war. Gasps rippled through the remaining crowd. Her knees buckled slightly. She grabbed the edge of a table. Sarah. she said, voice breaking for the first time in years, please. There it was. Not performance, not brand voice. Just her, the younger sister who used to cry when she lost at Monopoly. Power, I said calmly, was never in this house. More guests slipped out, and Dad knew that. Her shoulders shook. This was supposed to be my night, she whispered. You chose visibility. She stared at the floor. And you chose exposure. The gala ended not with applause, but with silence. But here's the thing nobody tells you about public collapse: it doesn't end when the crowd leaves. That's when it begins. 3 weeks later, the mansion felt different, quiet. Tiffany's SUV was gone. 2 refinancing notices had escalated. Influencer contracts dissolved the moment headlines hinted at legal dispute. Image's oxygen, and hers had thinned. I didn't celebrate, I didn't post, I didn't speak publicly. I went back to the station, fixed pumps, cleaned shelves, rebuilt. Because revenge is loud, justice is boring, and boring is sustainable. Then she showed up again. No red gown, no heels, no sunglasses, just jeans, a borrowed sedan, and hesitation. She stood outside Miller's Fuel for a full minute before walking in. The bell above the door chimed. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically. Emotionally. You really fixed it, she said quietly. I repaired what worked. She swallowed. I lost everything. You lost leverage. I corrected, not existence. Her eyes watered, but she didn't let them fall. I don't have anywhere to live. You have options. No, she whispered. I don't. That wasn't entirely true. But humiliation rewires perception. The settlement terms still stand, I said evenly. She nodded faintly. Work placement, debt restructuring, structured income recovery. You're serious about making me work here? Yes. I built a brand. You built visibility. I built a business. You built dependency. She looked away. I can't believe you're doing this. I can. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. The words came raw, unpolished. For the storm, for the gala, for everything. I didn't rush to comfort her. An apology doesn't erase consequences, I said calmly. I know. But it can begin something else. She looked up, hope. Fear, pride, shame. All fighting for space. Shift starts at 7 a.m., I said. And that's how Tiffany Miller, once the queen of curated success, started stocking motor oil and ringing up lottery tickets. But here's what neither of us knew yet. The real secret Dad left behind. It wasn't the trust. It wasn't the lien. It wasn't even the hidden basement. It was something buried in the final pages of his journal. Something neither of us had read closely enough, and when I finally did, I realized the gala was never the climax. It was only the warning shot. Because my father hadn't just prepared me for a legal battle. He had prepared me for a truth about Tiffany. That would make everything we'd done to each other look small. The truth wasn't about money. It wasn't about the house. It wasn't even about the night she locked me out in the rain. It was about something my father wrote 3 days before he died. And I almost missed it. Tiffany had been working at the station for 2 weeks. When I went back down into the basement vault, she was upstairs struggling to figure out how to reset the coffee machine without YouTubing it. I let her struggle, because life doesn't come with tutorials when you burn bridges. I brought Dad's leather journal down to the folding table under the single hanging bulb and flipped to the last section. The handwriting had changed near the end, not sloppy, but heavier, pressed harder into the paper. The final dated entry read, if Sarah returns, she will see what Tiffany cannot. I frowned. What Tiffany cannot? I kept reading. Love without accountability becomes control. Control without truth becomes manipulation. My stomach tightened. Then the next line stopped me cold. There is something Tiffany does not know about herself, and it is not mine to reveal unless necessary. The air felt thinner. What does that even mean? I flipped forward. The next page wasn't dated. Just a single sentence. The Harper file must remain sealed unless Tiffany attempts legal aggression. Harper file. Daniel Harper. No. I scanned the shelves around me. Binders labeled by year. Property logs. Trust documentation. Then, on the bottom shelf behind a box of outdated telecom manuals, a slim black folder, unlabeled. My pulse spiked. I opened it. Inside were certified hospital records, My breath caught. Tiffany was born in 1993. Why did Dad have hospital records from the year before? I flipped the page. Maternal records, complications, emergency surgical intervention, paternity consent documentation. My heart began pounding. Because the name on the document wasn't Daniel Miller. It was redacted in parts, but not entirely. There had been another man listed as biological contributor. The word hit like a physical blow. Biological contributor. I stared at the paperwork again. Tiffany had always joked she got Mom's side of the family. Dad used to smile strangely when she said that. Not amused. Not offended, just quiet. I turned the page. Legal adoption acknowledgement, filed 6 months after Tiffany's birth, signed by Daniel Miller. Dad wasn't Tiffany's biological father, he adopted her. Silently, legally, completely, and never told her. I sat back hard in the folding chair. The metal screeched against concrete. Upstairs, I could faintly hear Tiffany laughing at something a customer said. She didn't know. She had built her entire identity around legacy, around being Dad's golden girl, around inheriting the house because she was the responsible one. And she didn't know. My chest felt tight. This wasn't leverage. This was a nuclear option. I flipped to the last page in the folder. There was a handwritten note clipped to it. Sarah, blood is biology, fatherhood is choice. If you ever read this, do not use it to wound her. Only use it to protect yourself. My throat burned. Dad never weaponized it. Not once. Even when Tiffany isolated him. Even when she filtered visitors. Even when she controlled access to his hospital room. He never used the truth to hurt her, because for him, she was his daughter. Period. I closed the folder slowly. And realized something terrifying. If Tiffany ever discovered this through court discovery instead of from us, it would destroy her. Not socially. Internally, because Tiffany's identity wasn't just performance. It was inheritance. And inheritance isn't just money. It's belonging. I went upstairs. She was behind the counter arguing with the register. It keeps freezing. She snapped. Because you're hitting cancel instead of enter. She glared at me. This thing is prehistoric. So was Dad. She went quiet. We worked the rest of the shift in silence. But I watched her differently now. Every time she said. Dad always said. Every time she referred to our family legacy. She didn't know she was standing on a story she didn't fully understand, and I didn't know whether keeping that secret made me loyal or complicit. 2 days later, Harper called. There's a complication, he said. What kind? Tiffany has retained aggressive counsel. I closed my eyes. Of course she had. She's contesting the secondary lien validity and requesting full discovery on all estate documentation. Full discovery, meaning everything in the vault could be subpoenaed, including the adoption file. Timeline? I asked. Fast-tracked. She wants this settled publicly. Publicly. Dad's warning echoed in my head. If she chooses visibility over reconciliation, she's escalating. I said, yes. I looked across the station at Tiffany wiping down the soda fountain. She caught me staring. What? She asked. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Because if this went to court, the Harper file wouldn't stay sealed. And if it came out in open session, she would find out in front of strangers, the same way I found out about the will. Weaponized, humiliating, permanent. That night, I sat outside the station under the pale Pennsylvania sky and thought about war, about explosions, about damage radius. Some weapons don't just hit the target, they level everything around it. This truth wouldn't just hurt Tiffany, it would rewrite her childhood, rewrite every memory of Dad, rewrite herself. And I had to decide, was winning worth that? The next morning, she stormed into the office holding her phone. My lawyer says you've been hiding additional documents. I didn't flinch. I haven't hidden anything. Then why are there sealed files tied to hospital records? My stomach dropped. Discovery had already started. She stared at me. What are you not telling me? Her voice wasn't angry. It was shaky. Because something in her gut already knew. There was more. I felt the weight of the black folder in the safe behind me. Dad's words echoed again. Only use it to protect yourself. Not to wound her. Not to win. To protect. I looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time in years, she wasn't posturing. She was scared. What did Dad keep from me? She whispered. The bell above the station door chimed as a customer walked in. We both ignored it. The moment hung there. Fragile. If I told her now I controlled the truth. If I waited the courtroom would. She took a step closer. Sarah, she said, voice breaking just slightly. What is it? And I realized the next words out of my mouth wouldn't just decide the lawsuit. They would decide whether I became the kind of person my father was. Or the kind of person my sister thought I was. I opened my mouth to answer. I'm not hiding anything from you. The lie tasted metallic in my mouth. Because technically, I wasn't hiding it. I was delaying it. And delay, in moments like this, feels exactly like betrayal. Tiffany stood in the office doorway, hands shaking just enough to betray her composure. What hospital records? She demanded. Discovery pulls everything tied to estate administration, I said carefully. Dad had decades of files. Don't talk to me like I'm a client. She snapped. Talk to me like I'm your sister. The word sister hung there. Heavy. I could hear a customer at the counter clearing his throat awkwardly. Give me 10 minutes? I called out. Coffee's on the house. The bell chimed as he left. Silence swallowed the room. Tiffany stepped fully inside and closed the office door. What did he keep from me? Her voice was different now. Smaller. I looked at the safe bolted to the wall behind the filing cabinet. Then back at her. You escalated this, I said quietly. So did you. I filed paperwork. You humiliated me at my own event. You chose the stage. Her jaw clenched, stopped deflecting. I walked past her and unlocked the safe. My hands were steady. Inside the black folder waited. Thin, unassuming, explosive. I placed it on the metal desk between us. Her eyes flicked to it. What is that? Something Dad never wanted used as a weapon. She froze. My voice softened. You need to sit down. I'm not sitting. Sit. For once, she did. I opened the folder slowly and slid the first document toward her. She stared at the medical header. The year, 1992. She frowned. That's before I was born. Yes. She flipped the page. Her eyes moved. Stopped. Moved back up. What is biological contributor? Her voice barely existed. I swallowed. It means Dad wasn't your biological father. The air left her lungs in a sharp, no. Yes. She shook her head immediately. That's not funny. I'm not joking. She flipped faster now. Pages rustling. Legal adoption acknowledgement. Signatures. Dates. Her fingers began trembling violently. No, she whispered again. No, no, no. She looked up at me like I'd just shot her. You're lying. I wish I was. Her breathing grew uneven. This is fake. It's certified. Dad would have told me. Would he? Her face drained of color. You're doing this because of the lawsuit? She said suddenly, grasping at anger like a lifeline. You're trying to destabilize me. I didn't file this, I said evenly. He did. 30 years ago. She stared at the signature. Daniel Miller, the man she worshipped. The man she built her entire identity around. Her voice cracked. So who is it? The biological father's name is partially sealed, I said. Dad redacted copies in his personal archive. You knew, she demanded. I found out 3 days ago. And you waited. Less. Her head snapped up. Why? Because this doesn't belong in a courtroom. Silence hit like a shockwave. Tears finally spilled over. She didn't wipe them. He knew, she whispered. Yes. And he just acted normal. Yes. He loved me. The question shattered something inside me. Yes. Without hesitation. Yes. Her shoulders collapsed inward. All those times he called me my girl. It was real. She pressed her palm to her mouth, as if trying to physically hold herself together. I told people I was his favorite, she choked out. I didn't answer. Because favorites don't matter in adoption papers. Choice does. She suddenly looked up at me, panic flooding her features. Does anyone else know? Harper doesn't. Klein doesn't. It wasn't included in the primary estate disclosure. And if this goes to trial, it could surface? Her breathing quickened again. Oh my God. She stood abruptly, knocking the chair backward. This is why you didn't want me pushing discovery. No, I said. I didn't want you destroyed. She laughed bitterly through tears. Destroyed. You already did that. This isn't about winning. Everything with you is about proving you're stronger. Because I am. The words slipped out before I could stop them. She flinched. You think surviving war makes you morally superior? No, I said quietly. But surviving truth does. That landed. She looked at the folder again like it might disappear if she stared long enough. So what now? She asked hollowly. That's up to you. You hold this over me. I protect it. She sank back into the chair. Mom knew.
Yes.
And she never told me. No. A broken laugh escaped her. So I built my entire brand around being the legacy daughter, and I'm not even. Don't finish that sentence. Why not? No, I said firmly. It's not. She looked up. You are his daughter, not biologically. Biology is lazy. He chose you. Her face crumpled again. Then why didn't he tell me? I hesitated. Because you tied identity to status. She went still. You always talked about inheritance like it proved something. She didn't deny it. And he didn't want you thinking love was earned through bloodlines. Her voice dropped to a whisper. So he just let me believe. Yes. We sat there for a long time. No yelling, no insults. Just two women staring at a truth neither of us asked for. Finally, she spoke. If this comes out publicly, I won't survive it. That wasn't dramatic, it was honest. Her entire life ran on image. If donors learned she'd unknowingly built campaigns around a false legacy narrative, the fallout would be brutal. You can end the lawsuit, I said. Her eyes flicked up. You'd keep it sealed. Yes. She studied me carefully. And what do you get? Peace. She let out a shaky breath. That's it. That's enough. She shook her head in disbelief. I don't understand you. You don't have to. Another long pause. Then. I don't want to go to court. The admission was quiet, small, real. Okay, I said. She wiped her face roughly. I thought you were trying to destroy me. I was trying to balance us. You could have ruined me. I still could. She didn't argue, because we both knew it was true. Instead, she whispered something I never expected to hear. Thank you. And for the first time since the storm I believed her. But peace never comes without a final test. Because the next morning, before Tiffany could officially withdraw the lawsuit, we got a call from Harper. Media inquiry, he said grimly. Someone tipped off a reporter about sealed estate files. My blood ran cold. About what? Hospital documentation. I slowly looked at Tiffany. Her face drained all over again. It wasn't coming from us. And that meant only one thing. Someone else knew. I didn't leak anything. That was the first thing Tiffany said. Not I'm scared. Not what do we do? Just pure instinct. Defense. We were standing in the middle of the station when Harper's call ended. The smell of burnt coffee hung in the air. A pickup truck idled at pump 3. Who else has access? Tiffany demanded. Only the probate office during preliminary polls, I said, and your accountant. She signed confidentiality. Her breathing was shallow again. Fast. I swear to God, Sarah, if you. I didn't. The firmness in my voice stopped her. For a second, the old version of her flickered. Calculating, defensive, suspicious. Then it melted into something else. Fear. What did they say exactly? She asked. Local reporter claims a source tipped them off about sealed hospital documentation tied to estate irregularities. She closed her eyes. This is going to blow up. Only if it smells like scandal. And doesn't it? She snapped. I didn't answer. Because yes, it did. By noon, the story hadn't published. That meant the reporter was verifying, fishing, digging, which meant we still had time. Harper called again. They want comment before print. What angle? I asked. Possible concealment of paternity tied to estate control. Tiffany made a sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a laugh. Estate control, she repeated. Like I plotted my own birth. I stepped outside with the phone. Daniel, I said quietly, how strong is the legal seal? On the adoption file. Strong. But if this becomes a public probate battle, motions can surface sensitive documentation. And if the lawsuit is withdrawn? significantly lowers exposure. I looked through the station window at Tiffany sitting on a milk crate behind the counter, staring at nothing. She's withdrawing. Then do it immediately, he said. Before press senses blood. Inside, I crouched in front of her. You have to file withdrawal today. She nodded slowly. Do it before sunset. She swallowed. Will that stop them? It removes motive. And if they already know, then we control the narrative. She laughed hollowly. I don't even know what my narrative is anymore. That hurt more than the insults ever did. Because for the first time, she wasn't curating. She was lost. By 4:17 p.m. By 5:03 p.m., Harper confirmed receipt. At 6:12 p.m., the article dropped anyway. Not explosive, not screaming headlines, but sharp enough. Estate dispute raises questions about family records in prominent lakeside household. No names about paternity. No confirmation. Just insinuation, speculation, enough to ignite curiosity. My phone buzzed. Tiffany's old business partner had texted her. What is this about? Call me Nando? She stared at the message like it was a bomb. I can't do this again, she whispered. Then don't. She looked at me. Don't what? Don't perform. Silence. You built your life on control, I continued. Now you choose honesty. She let out a shaky breath. You think people respect that? No, I said. I think they respect survival. That night, we sat at the metal desk together. Not as enemies, not as competitors. As two daughters trying to understand a man who made impossible choices quietly. I keep replaying childhood memories, she said softly, trying to see if I missed something. Did you? She shook her head. He treated me exactly like you. Yes, maybe better sometimes, she admitted weakly. I smirked faintly. He let you win at Monopoly. She almost smiled, then it faded. Why didn't he tell me? Because you measured love in status. She flinched again. But he also knew. I added. That you weren't ready. Ready for what? To love without leverage. That landed. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A man in his late 60s walked into the station. Gray beard, veteran cap, slow steps. He looked around. You Daniel's girl? He asked. I nodded. He fixed my truck for free in '98 when I couldn't pay. The man said. Told me to come back when I got steady. He placed a folded 100 bill on the counter. For the station. He walked out before I could respond. Tiffany stared at the money. He did that. Whole the time. I didn't know. He didn't advertise it. She swallowed. That's not good branding. No, I said softly. It's good character. Over the next week, more people came. Small stories. Quiet gratitude. No one asked about the article. No one cared about estate rumors. They cared about who Daniel Miller had been to them. Tiffany listened to every story like she was hearing her father for the first time. One night after closing, she spoke without looking at me. If he chose me, knowing the truth. He did. Then I spent 30 years proving something that didn't need proving. Yes. Her voice cracked slightly. I made everything a competition. Less. With you. Yes, she nodded slowly. I'm tired. Good. She blinked at me. Good. Ego is heavy. A long silence followed. Then she said something that changed everything. I don't want the house anymore. I froze. What? I don't want to live there. Not like that. This isn't guilt. No. She said quietly. It's clarity. She looked around the station. At least this place is honest. But clarity always attracts consequence. Because 3 days later, a second article dropped. This one less subtle. Anonymous source claims inheritance conflict tied to concealed adoption. My heart pounded as I read it. They didn't have proof. But they had direction. Tiffany read it over my shoulder. Her face went pale. They're going to find him. Find who? The biological father. The words hung between us. And suddenly, this wasn't about legacy, or lawsuits, or humiliation. It was about a man neither of us had ever met. A name half redacted in a file. A ghost from 1992. If reporters dug deeper, they wouldn't just expose Tiffany. They would expose him. And maybe he had a family. Maybe he didn't even know she existed. Tiffany looked at me, eyes wide. What if he doesn't know? I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I had already wondered the same thing, and if the media found him first, this wouldn't be a story. It would be a detonation. She whispered it before I could. We need to find him. I think I know his name. The words came out of Tiffany's mouth like she was confessing to a crime. We were standing in the basement vault. The black folder lay open between us. The redacted line stared back like a dare. You said it was partially sealed, she continued, kneeling beside me. But it's not fully blacked out. She was right. The ink had faded slightly over 30 years. The redaction wasn't digital. It was done manually before copying, and beneath the thick black stripe, faint letters pressed through the page. Ch-A-R-P? My pulse slowed. No, I said quietly. She looked at me. That can't mean. It could be coincidence. But it didn't feel like one. Harper. Daniel Harper. Our attorney. The man handling our probate case. My stomach dropped hard enough to make me dizzy. You think? Tiffany started, then stopped. I don't think anything yet. But I did, because Dad had labeled a section of the journal. The Harper file must remain sealed unless Tiffany attempts legal aggression. At the time, I thought it was a reference to the law firm. Now it sounded like a warning. Harper would have been in his 20s in 1992. Tiffany whispered, old enough. Hay's been representing our family for years. Yes. Her breathing grew uneven. Oh my God. If this is true, I said carefully, then the biological father isn't a ghost. Hay's been in the room. Every probate meeting. Every legal call. Every quiet conversation about inheritance. He had looked Tiffany in the eye. And said nothing. We didn't confront him immediately. We couldn't afford to be wrong, so I did what the army trained me to do. Verify. Cross-check. I drove to the county clerk's office the next morning. Small brick building. Fluorescent lighting, smell of old paper and government patience. The adoption record was sealed, but the original birth certificate application log was not. And under father biological, the initial was clearly visible. I exhaled slowly. Daniel Harper, same county, same time period, same hospital. I stepped outside into the cold Pennsylvania air and stared at my phone for a full minute before dialing. Daniel, I said when he answered, we need to talk. We met at his office. Bookshelves, leather chairs, framed certificates. He looked composed as always, but when I placed the partially redacted document on his desk, his face changed, just slightly, but enough. You recognize it? I said. Silence. Tiffany stood beside me rigid. You knew, she whispered. Harper removed his glasses slowly. Yes. The word landed like a gunshot. Tiffany staggered back a step. For how long? I demanded. Since 1992. Since 1992. Tiffany's voice cracked. Wes! You're telling me you've been my father my entire life and just... What? Watched. His jaw tightened. I was 23, your mother and I. It was brief. Complicated. Complicated. Tiffany's voice was rising now. You signed paperwork and disappeared. I did not disappear. Daniel Miller asked me to. Silence. What? I said. Your father, Daniel Miller, requested full legal adoption and non-disclosure. He wanted you raised without divided identity. You agreed. Tiffany choked. I agreed because I was not prepared to be a father, and he was. The room felt too small. You've been representing us for years, I said carefully. You handled the estate. Yes. And never once thought to tell her. That was not my right. It was my life! Tiffany shouted. He flinched. For the first time since I'd met him, the polished attorney cracked. I have followed your career, he said quietly. Every article. Every fundraiser. Every award. From a distance, she spat. Yes. Why? Because I didn't know if revealing the truth would give you clarity or destroy you. Tiffany laughed through tears. So you chose silence. Yes. You let me build my identity around a legacy that wasn't even biological. Harper stood slowly. Legacy is not biological. Stop saying that, she screamed. I stepped between them before the moment imploded. Did Dad ever want to tell her? I asked. Yes. When? Last year. My chest tightened. What stopped him? You. Tiffany froze. What? Harper's voice softened. You had just secured the Harper Lakeside Foundation board seat. You were publicly positioning yourself as Daniel Miller's heir in every sense. Tiffany's face went pale. He didn't want the revelation to look like a scandal. So he chose silence again. She whispered. Yes. The weight of it settled slowly. Dad didn't hide the truth to manipulate. He hid it to protect. Harper didn't vanish. He stepped aside. And Tiffany had spent her entire life trying to prove she belonged somewhere she had already been chosen for. She looked at Harper with hollow eyes. Did you ever want to tell me? He swallowed. Every year on your birthday. Her breath hitched. But I believed Daniel was the better father. Silence. Then she whispered the question that mattered most. Did you love me? He didn't hesitate. Yes. Tears streamed down her face, openly now. Not for money, not for image. For 30 years of quiet absence. I watched her carefully. This was the moment that would define her. She could explode. She could sue. She could turn it into another spectacle. Instead, she did something I never expected. She stepped back, wiped her face, and said calmly, "You don't get to call me your daughter." Harper's face broke. I understand. You made your choice in 1992. Wes, so did Dad. Yes. And I'm keeping his. She turned toward the door. I don't want the house. I don't want the lawsuit. And I don't want another secret. Then she walked out. Outside, the winter air felt cleaner. She stood beside my truck, staring at nothing. Are you okay? I asked. She let out a shaky breath. I don't know. That's fair. After a long silence, she said quietly, I used to think blood made things permanent. And now, I think choice does. She looked at me. I'm not his by blood, no. But I was Dad's by choice. Yes. She nodded slowly. Then I don't need to chase anything anymore. For the first time in her life, she sounded free. But freedom always comes with a final confrontation, because the media didn't know the full story yet. And if they found Harper, this would explode beyond our control. Tiffany looked at me. We'll go public, she said suddenly. What? On our terms. My pulse quickened. That's risky. So is silence. She straightened her shoulders. No more secrets. No more curated narratives. She met my eyes. Let's tell the truth. And for the first time since the storm we were standing on the same side, but going public meant reopening everything. The porch, the will, the adoption, the gala, the humiliation, everything. I asked her one last time. You sure? She nodded. I'm done performing. The press conference was scheduled for Friday. And I had no idea whether it would save us or finish what the storm started. The morning of the press conference, I almost told her not to do it. Not because I thought she'd fall apart, but because I wasn't sure I wouldn't. We stood in front of Miller's Fuel, not the mansion. That was her choice. No chandeliers, she'd said the night before. No marble, no orchestra, just truth. A few local reporters gathered near the pumps. Nothing national yet. Just regional press sniffing around the adoption angle. The sky was cold and gray, the kind of Pennsylvania winter morning that feels honest. Tiffany wore jeans, a plain sweater, no makeup team, no stylist, no armor. I stood beside her, not in front, not behind, beside. A small thing, a huge shift. She stepped toward the microphones. For half a second I saw the old instinct flicker, chin lift, shoulders square, brand voice loading. Then she let it go. My name is Tiffany Miller, she began. Not entrepreneur. Not founder. Just her name. And there's been speculation about my family and my father. She swallowed. I want to clarify something. Daniel Miller was my father. No hesitation. No asterisk. Her voice wavered, but didn't break. I was adopted at birth. Legally, privately, lovingly. A ripple moved through the small crowd. My biological father signed his rights away so I could be raised by a man who wanted me. Silence. And for 30 years, I built an identity around legacy and inheritance. She exhaled slowly. I thought blood made something real. Her eyes flicked toward me for just a second. It doesn't. Choice does. A reporter asked, were you aware of the adoption during the estate dispute? No, she said calmly. I learned recently. And did that factor into the legal proceedings? She shook her head. The legal dispute has been withdrawn. I will not contest the estate. Another question. Is it true there were hidden financial instruments tied to the property? Yes, she answered honestly. My father structured a trust. My sister handled it appropriately. Handled it appropriately. That was her way of saying I didn't weaponize it. She looked back at the microphones. I also want to address something else. My pulse quickened. Here it was. The night my sister came home from Afghanistan. Tiffany continued, voice softening. I locked her out of my house. A murmur moved through the reporters. I called her a loser. Her breath hitched. And I was wrong. The air felt electric. I built a life on perception, she said, and I confused visibility with value. Her eyes found mine again. My sister built her life on service. She paused. And I mistook that for failure. Silence stretched wide and heavy. I won't be selling the lakeside property, she continued. It will be liquidated voluntarily. Reporters glanced at each other. The proceeds will fund the Miller Transition Fund, supporting veterans returning home without resources. My throat tightened. That wasn't part of our original plan. She hadn't told me that. Gasps from the crowd. You're giving up the house? Someone asked. Yes. Why? She answered without hesitation. Because legacy isn't what you inherit, it's what you repair. Her voice didn't shake that time, it anchored. She stepped back. And that was it. No dramatic exit. No applause. Just truth hanging in cold air. The articles that followed weren't explosive. They were reflective. Local entrepreneur reveals adoption in estate dispute. Family reconciles amid legal tension. Lakeside mansion to fund veteran housing initiative. The scandal narrative died quickly. There was no fight to feed it. No bitterness to magnify. Just clarity. And clarity isn't sexy enough to trend for long. 3 months later, the mansion was sold quietly. No auction gala, no farewell party. The funds seeded the Miller Transition Fund properly. Housing stipends, job placement support, legal counseling for returning service members navigating discharge paperwork and family reintegration. Tiffany handled grant proposals. I handled operations. We worked, not as rivals, as partners. One evening in early spring, we sat outside the station after closing. The neon sign buzzed softly overhead. A trucker had just left after telling us Dad once drove through a snowstorm to deliver him parts at midnight. We laughed about it. Of course he did, Tiffany said. After a long silence, she asked quietly, do you ever resent him for not telling me? I thought about it. No. Why not? Because he trusted me with the truth. She nodded slowly. And you didn't use it to destroy me. I considered it. She gave me a faint, crooked smile. I know. The air was cool. The kind that makes you feel awake. I used to think you left because you didn't care, she said suddenly. I left because I didn't know how to stay. She looked at me carefully. I thought you were running. I was searching. For what? Something that didn't depend on anyone's approval. She absorbed that. I spent my whole life chasing approval, she admitted. I know. She leaned back against the concrete wall and stared at the stars. You know what's crazy? What? I finally feel like I belong. I didn't answer right away. Because I understood exactly what she meant. Belonging isn't about blood. It's not about houses. It's not about who stands on stage. It's about who stands next to you when the lights turn off. She nudged my shoulder lightly. You're not a loser, by the way. I smirked. Took you long enough. She laughed softly. Real, unfiltered. And in that moment, the storm from that first night felt like it belonged to another lifetime. People think the climax of a story is the explosion. The gala. The courtroom. The secret revealed. It's not. The real climax is the decision after you have the power to destroy someone. And you choose not to. Dad left me a gas station. He left Tiffany a house. But what he really left us was a test. Not of loyalty. Not of blood. Of character. And the night she locked me out in the rain. That wasn't the end of our story. It was the moment we both had to decide who we were without applause. Now, when veterans pull up to Pump 3 and ask about the fund, Tiffany handles the paperwork with steady hands, no branding slogans, no curated captions, Just names, stories, choices. Sometimes I catch her watching the sunset behind the station sign. Quiet, grounded, different. And I think about that word she threw at me in the storm. Loser. Funny thing about losing, sometimes you have to lose the house. Lose the image. Lose the illusion. Before you finally win yourself. And the last thing my father ever taught me wasn't about money or legacy. It was this: the strongest position isn't the one where you stand above someone. It's the one where you could crush them, and you decide to stand beside them instead.